here are some things to help you learn to speak like a northerner for your next Game of Thrones party or play taking place in Northern England. I'm AE, host of the podcast AE Reads Skiffily, where I read science fiction stories and then add immersive sound effects. I had to learn how to speak with a North English accent, and I thought I'd share with you how my amateur linguist eye helped me to overcome my ignorance of this accent. I started not knowing how to speak like a northerner, but I've got sort of a linguist's mind about these things. I'm really just an amateur, and I studied the features of Northern English. I thought it might be helpful to other podcasters and readers and actors even to know how to speak with a Northern English accent. So here are some things to help you learn to speak like a northerner. As I go through this, I've found the International Phonetic Alphabet is pretty useful, but if you're not familiar with it, you can find your own notation. You can use English orthography, you can use colours, or you can use pictures. The first thing that's important about a North English accent is that a northerner speaks with a non-rhotic accent. What that means is that the R's after vowels are gone. It affects how the vowels are pronounced. Think of like proper British English. That's non-rhotic. So you say things like park the car and me that beer. There's a lot about non-rhotic accents I probably won't cover in this video. You can represent non-rhoticity with a different colour, perhaps red, or maybe a picture of a rowboat. Past the rhoticity, the one thing that's really important to nail down a Northern English accent is the pronunciation of short U. So the vowel of words like soon and cook and could for a northerner is the same as the vowel in words like soon and cook and could. You see, in North English, they never had the split of cook, the man who makes your dinner, and cook, what the alt-right likes to call liberals and beta males. The man who makes you breakfast for money, he's a cook. The man who makes you breakfast for sleeping with his wife, he's a cook. In the International Phonetic Alphabet, this vowel is an horseshoe. I'll represent it here with a
President Trump.
Picture of Steve Bannon. Another feature of this accent is the absence of the trap bath split. So for example, words like dance and grass, they're pronounced with a ah, whereas in posh accents it's pronounced with the same vowel as bra, so they'll say dance. That's a feature of English, but not of American English. If you feel you need to represent this somehow, you can use a cat to represent the flat A, or ash as it is in International Phonetic Alphabet. And you can use a bra to represent a broad A. Another feature of this accent, it's the what you might call the dropping of the G in ing words. Instead of a velar place of articulation for these words, it's alveolar, like a regular N. So like, you might say wedding, it's not universal across all words. It only applies for the gerund ing, not all cases of ing. For example, you wouldn't say, I'm sinning, you'd say, I'm singing. To represent this feature, you can literally drop the G and put an apostrophe or an X. If you feel up to putting pictures, you can draw a what to drop because you're dropping G's. So that's a feature of Northern English. Another feature of this accent is the vowels of bake and coat. They're pronounced in a sort of flat, monophthongal way. There's no variation in the vowels pronunciation like in other accents. To represent these vowels, here's a cake and here's a coat. And then another monophthongal pronunciation is the vowel of mac. For example, I went to the microphone and I sung. This is really similar to the Southern American pronunciation of this vowel. Since I've been to the South before, I knew this one pretty well. I feel like having fun with representing this one. Let's use a picture of Mike Tyson from his NES game. That'll show him for that stupid tattoo. And also raping women. Another feature of Northern English is the L's. The letter L is pronounced what's called dark in linguistic circles. You might think of it as mixing an L with a W. In fact, if you can tell the difference between the L of lip and the L of pill, then you're in good standing to understand the difference between a clear L and a dark L. In Northern English, this darkness goes further to what's called L-vocalization. What this means is that in some words, L becomes a vowel. Like people. You say people. So if you were to represent this in a phonetic way, you could just write the vowel. You could also write an L with a little squiggly in the middle. That's how the phoneticians do it. You could also use this picture of a pill, since most accents have a dark L in that word. If, as a result of the opioid epidemic, you're triggered by a picture of a pill, pick a different picture that works for you. There are two marked features of Northern English consonants that are really important. One is the H's. A lot of them are dropped. You don't have to do all of them, but it helps. You can represent this visually by crossing out your H's. If you're an American, you want to take good care of your T's. In American English, our T's are sometimes pronounced like D's, like in the words butter and ladder.
Butter and ladder.
It's what linguists call intervocalic alveolar flapping, but Northerners don't do that. So you've got to make sure you pop your T's, especially between vowels. So you'll say the babysitter and the middle. There are a number of ways you can represent this popping T. Perhaps you could use a capital T. So that's what I know about a Northern English accent. Thank you so much for listening to this whole video. If you like this video, be sure to give it lots of love. Share it and like it and comment. Tell your friends about my podcast. Give me feedback to let me know what video I should do next. If I get lots of love for it, I'll do more.